All right, we are live. Looks like I was having issues getting anything streamed to X because my brother Doug has not paid for a premium account, so he has his own X/Twitter account. But I am joined this evening by Steve Moutria, and as I'm gonna have to mute this phone, but we asked him what he wanted to talk about, if there's anything on his mind, on his heart that he had been praying about, and he said he felt the seals of Revelation. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and then we'll, as I'm prone to do, I might interrupt him here, answer a question, and then he'll edit anything out that I might do that's on his channel. So, anyway, Steve, good to see you again, man. I'm
Good
looking
seeing
forward to
you.
this. So I'll let you take it over.
Cool. Well, thank you, brother, and I appreciate this. When you contact me, if I had anything, and the seals was on my mind at first, and still is, and so we were discussing it. But it seems like as I kept praying about it and thinking it through, I wanted to discuss the whole gamut of Revelation. Everything as much as possible. Now, you can't cover everything. As 22 chapters, there's so much involved. You get all these different interpretations. I get it. And I'm not saying one interpretation is wrong and mine's right. Anyone who's watched my teachings will tell you I got 4 or 5 different views of Revelation, and how things could play out. But I do want to solidify a few things with where I'm at today. Now, again, as always, ask me tomorrow. It may change just a little bit. Okay. But I will say that what I'm going to be presenting today has been kind of the overarching theme through all of my teachings for quite a while now. Now, the timing may vary here and there, but as a whole, you'll see some different things, how it could play out. Now, I'll be addressing more so in this presentation the element of how things could play in with, again, as in the days of Noah. How could it play out? And I'll be mixing several different teachings in here. I may reference a couple here and there for those who want more detail on a different topic. But when it comes to everything for me as a whole, I always refer to Isaiah 46:10. He makes known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what's still to come. And as I've said multiple times too, though things are cyclical, they may not always be identical, but we need to look for those parallels where we can. How could they play out? I believe we need to have ourselves open as possible always when it comes to prophecy. So a few things I want to look at is what to look for, what to expect, and what do we do if that actually does happen. So now on the calendar that we follow, it's June 1st this year is Shavuot, Pentecost. I know several people actually have the week after, but ours is on June 1st. And as in the days of teaching, as in the days of Noah teaching, if you haven't seen it, please check it out. I just watched it again myself today, and I forgot. Every time I watch it, I always forget there's so many little knickknacks and details within it that can be overlooked so easily. But in that teaching, I bring out how the 27th day of the second month is a day I believe we should always be watching. And that namely because Yeshua ascended into heaven on the 27th day of the second month. Now, you need to go to that teaching. I don't want to spell it all out here, but in that teaching, I show how we can prove to the day that's the day Yeshua rose. I should say ascended into heaven. And I bring out that importance because in the Septuagint of Genesis, we have Noah entering the ark and exiting the ark on the 27th day of the second month. Now, if you go to the Hebrew Masoretic, it'll say he entered the ark on the 17th day of the second month and then exited the ark on the 27th day of the second month. So a year and 10 days. However, the Septuagint, which I believe is far more reliable than the Hebrew Masoretic, it shows the 27th day he entered and the 27th day he exited, 1 full year to the day. And I think that's important to understand. But in the teaching that I brought out, I brought forth an emphasis on the 27th day. And I've been praying about that. And I think the more important element that we need to be watching is the 40th day in the counting to Shavuot. You see, in the days of Yeshua's ascension, that time frame lined up perfectly with the days of Noah, that time frame, meaning how it landed leading up to Shavuot. Well, this year, if you follow our calendar, many of you will know that this year from Passover, it lines up precisely with the Exodus out of Egypt. And it's insane. So I feel as if, and I say feel because I have nothing really substantial to say or to prove anything other than this, I'm concerned in my feelings, if you will, that what if this is the year that we could see something of Yahweh leading his people out of Babylon? And it's all assumption. I get it. But man, there's so much going on in this world today. I feel like we should always keep our eyes open. Yeshua said to watch and pray.
Well,
Go ahead.
I can remember this time last year talking to you, or maybe it was 2 years ago talking to you, where if it's exactly 2 days or 2,000 years to the very day that he returned to his place per Hosea 5:15, it would be. I mean, if it's exactly, to the day, to the year, it would be on that 40th day after first fruits. It would be 10 days before Shavuot. And so,
correct.
That's just an extra day I pay attention to now. So.
It is. I'm telling you, man, it's so funny you bring that up because I don't think it's coincidence. Nothing is coincidence with Yahweh, I know, but we're trying to figure all this stuff out. All of us, we're all trying to figure out these little pieces of the puzzle. We get excited when we see something, we share it, and then all of a sudden someone else sees another piece and we all get excited again. Well, I feel as if knowing that Noah entered the ark and exited the ark on the 27th day, that's pretty considerable. And here Yeshua enters into the heavenlies on the 40th day, which happened to be the 27th day of the second month. Now, what if everything starts on the 27th day? It picks right back up where he left off. He ascended. Now all of a sudden it's going to start right back again on that 40th day. It's plausible. And I don't feel we should just brush that off as like, well, that's just a coincidence, Steve, or, you're just assuming. Yeah, I get it. But aren't we all watching and praying? So
it would be different, Steve, if you were actually teaching, thus saith Steve. This is sort of, that's where I, especially with prophecy teachers, and obviously certain things are written in dispensational song. Thou shalt not ever come against and teach against the pre-trib rapture. If thou ever wants to be invited to a prophecy conference again.
Right.
So, but there are certain things, obviously, with our dispensational brothers and sisters, pre-trib, leaning, pre-wrath, mid-trib. Yeah, they can be very dogmatic and extremely rigid in how they understand prophecy. I mean, they've got it all figured out. Maybe I'm too dumb or smart enough to ever think and proclaim something as, by golly, thus saith Yah.
Right. I hear you.
I'd rather hedge. People get frustrated, but I'm sorry, when it comes to prophecy, and like you said, it's a big, huge jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, and we're all learning.
We're trying to put the pieces together, and sometimes this piece fits here great, but over here it's like, well, this ain't fit so good. And you got to be honest with yourself.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. So because in the teaching, as in the days of Noah, I present the element of how all the seals were broken. Okay, they're already broken. Everyone's saying, well, the seals are going to be broken here, or they've been doing this and over time. I get the theories, and I'm not saying they're wrong. Please understand that. But my current understanding is that when Yeshua ascended into the heavenlies, into the throne room, those seals were all broken right then and there on the day of his ascension. And again, you'll need to watch the teaching as in the days of Noah. I go into details with that. But it's Revelation 14, where it says, and I don't have the verses in front of me, forgive me, but it says that he sees this angel who roared like a lion. All the description of the angel was of Yeshua. And remember, angel simply means messenger. So what messenger is it? Well, Yeshua is the mediator between God and man. So he's a mediator. He's a messenger. Here's Yeshua. I'm sorry.
Just like the angel of Yahweh in the Older Testament, in the Hebrew
right.
Scripture.
Well, and what others would say, the angel of the Lord. Correct. I'm right there with you. And so But he's holding it. Again, this is Revelation 14. It says he's holding an open scroll, meaning what? The seals have been broken. It's now been opened. And I think it's around verse 10, if I'm not mistaken, in chapter 14, it says there will be no more delay, meaning what? Yes, the seals have been broken, but the effects of it happening has been delayed. And so it's very possible that it'll happen. It's the delay comes to an end at this day of the 40th day of the second, or 40th day in the counting of Shavuot. And for those who don't know, I believe, as Yeshua said, the days are shortened. But they're not shortened by cutting off time from the end. They're shortened by starting everything late, delayed. Thus, the Revelation 14 says there will be no more delay. So it should have started before already, but he's pausing it. It's paused, it's on pause. All of a sudden, boom, now it starts. And there's just a little bit of time left. Thus, it's shortened by starting late, not by being cut short at the end. Hopefully that makes sense. Now,
yeah, you didn't hit the start button for 1,995-ish plus years.
Right.
You had it on pause.
Right.
So,
yep.
We would differ, but again, that's cool.
Yeah.
on the 1260, I'm sorry, man. I just can't get over it. I'll be honest. I've got all these witnesses of 1,260 days, 1,290 days.
No, I get it.
42 months.
But again, okay. Since you're on that topic, I'm glad you brought it up, because I bring this up, and I forgot. I think it was declaring the different beginning teaching. When Yahweh throws out a judgment, okay, it's in Leviticus. I'm going to say chapter 18, it's like 19 or 20, 21, 22, somewhere in those chapters. He talks about how if after you've been judged, he goes, if you remain stiff-necked, I'll multiply your afflictions times 7. Right. Okay. So that means he can take a judgment and multiply it. Well, if we look at the prophecies of all the end-time judgment, the time frames that you just mentioned, what if those were him throwing the book at us, giving us the maximum punishment? Well, then that means he can cut it short to what? 1/7, as short as 1/7. Because if he can multiply it by 7, he can cut it short by 7, if you will. Because why? Because he gave us he threw the book at us. He gave us the maximum punishment. Well, now, out of his grace and his mercy, he's going to cut it short, delay it to the 1/7. That's why I bring that out. And that's why I see it that way.
I kind of hope you're right. I mean, in my perfect world, pre-trib rapture people would be right, and we just would get out of here and face zero tribulation here in the West. We would go from just living, and things are starting to really get bad, and we start to get tribulated, and zip, we're gone. There's no time of Jacob's trouble to go through for the trial. I mean, I don't believe that, but same thing. My friend Doug Hamp's theory about the two witnesses being two little dudes. That's his understanding. And them testifying in the first 3.5 year period of this final 7 years, this, the typical Daniel 70th week interpretation, which is all future. And so Doug's understanding is the two witnesses will testify the first half. And then, then the beast, the Antichrist, will reign in the second half of it, and I would love for that theory to be correct, because I think it would give people time to repent. Right. It would be this big supernatural battle between, and there would literally be a lot of signs and wonders. I just don't see it happening that way. But I would love to be incorrect.
Yeah, right. No joke. With a lot of the things that I believe, trust me, I would love to be wrong. And regardless of what I believe, and let's say when we get on the other side and I was wrong here on that, and somebody else was right, I'm going to do? I'm going to give them a high five. I'm going to say, great job. You got it. You nailed it. This is not a competition. We're all together.
Hey, and my friend Curtis Reese says, I doubt very seriously on Judgment Day that Messiah is going to be very impressed by how much you knew.
Oh, what we know is only by what he gives us. So it's not because of our merit, not because of our knowledge and understanding. Trust me, it's not that at all.
It's like, oh, Scott, you figured it out. You kind of
oh,
treated your wife really crappy, and you had all these other things, and you never repented, and you were just mean as a snake. But by golly, you figured out prophecy. Yeah, here you go.
right.
You've got the front of the line, Scott. No, that ain't happening.
No, yeah, it's all about what we can do in our choosing, and that's loving people and loving God. The two greatest commands. May we never, ever forget that those are what we'll be judged on, not because we got this right or got that right, and understanding something. That comes strictly through his grace and his mercy of revealing something to us. And I think only if you don't let pride come into your life because of that, he'll grant you more, and if you're willing to, because sometimes, I know we're off topic a little bit here, forgive me, but
Yes.
I think sometimes the Father will, because of our prejudices against this or against that in our life, or this view or against that view, he may get us to believe this right here in order to get us to believe this other part over here. Though this is still wrong, but he can't get us to point B yet until he gets us to point A to get us to point B. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, 100%. I'll give you an example, and I will give you some credit here on this one. You were one of the ones, and I don't even know that it was specific teaching, but for probably the first 2 or 3 years that I sort of started having a public, people keep telling me I have a ministry, but started having a public ministry. I was so, if I heard the word rapture, I mean, it was like nails on the chalkboard, or, like a pre-trib rapture or harpazo, it was like, because that's all I heard growing up for 47 years. And I just learned that, wait a minute, I'm Israel. There's no new thing called the church. We're all in covenant of Israel, and so this nonsense about a Gentile church getting raptured is sheer nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
But then I can't remember if it's you, Tony Robinson, or a little bit combination of the two, looking at, wait a minute, this man child is harpazoed. This man child that rules, that will rule with a rod of iron, and then comparing it to Revelation 2, and it's the overcomers.
Right.
The overcomers that will rule with Messiah. He will give the reign to co-rule or to reign. And
Isaiah
with that, we are, I'm not saying we, I don't want to put myself in the overcomer category. I think this is a highly select, chosen group of people, which if I'm Yeshua right now, and not because I know myself worst best, I ain't choosing me.
Right.
I mean,
no joke. I hear you. I'm right there with you. And that's something we pray for, that and Yeshua said, Luke 21:36, pray you're able to escape all these things and you may stand before the Son of Man. So that's my prayer, is that I'm counted to be with that, that I have the strength. The verse actually talks about that you may have the strength to escape all these things, meaning you can leave it behind. When we look at, you're so off topic, look at Lot and his wife. Okay, well, she didn't have the strength, because why? She looked back. And I don't think it was just a glancing back. I think it was a longing back. You know what I'm saying? She's looking back to long and mourning what she's leaving. There's a difference.
Sort of like those in the desert longing to go back to Egypt. Not just, oh man, it really would be nice just to have some leeks and cucumbers, but they were like they were obsessing over all the luxuries they had in Egypt. Even as slaves, they had it better than than little being nomads.
Right.
I can get it. I understand. I mean, we want to fuss at what the Israelites did back then, but put yourself in their shoes. So,
right. Yep. No, I'm right there with you.
To your point, Steve, this pattern, I believe part of this, maybe at the latter part, if there is this, I believe we can see a very similar pattern, but maybe being more global, because now Israel is spread all over the world versus being confined and contained within one country and one region of said country.
Correct. Yep. Agreed. Yeah. And I'll actually be coming back to that in a little bit here. So let's go to the seals. First, you have the white horse. Okay. I know a lot of people, will try to personify that as the Antichrist, or, and as I've said before, I think we use caution in personifying things. I think, because if you're going to personify the first rider, you got to personify all of them. Okay. And I think it's more so of what they represent more than anything. I could be wrong. And I'm not here to say anyone who believes otherwise is wrong. I'm just asking, let's be open. because I've heard some great perspectives. Don't get me wrong. So the first is a white horse. He's holding a rainbow. Now the English says bow, but if you go to the Greek Septuagint, that word for bow is the exact same word used for rainbow at the flood. So here we see the rider's holding a bow, and a rainbow at that time represents covenant. Okay, so I think this is important too. And he's given a crown. Now, what does this represent? I'm open. I have lots of theories, and it's because I don't want to say I think this, I think that, because right now I have so many different perspectives on it. I just want to say I'm open, but I think it will be significant, and when it happens, we will all know, I believe. Second is the red horse. That's the second seal. And it says he takes peace. Now, a lot of people say this is a war. I get it. I'm not saying it's wrong. However, where it says he holds a great sword, the Greek does not say great sword. It says old dagger. It says it's the great is where people get for old, but it means as in age. And the where they say sword, I don't really get that at all, because it literally means little sword, like a dagger. So he holds a little dagger. In my opinion, I think it represents a time of chaos. Okay. And third horse, the black one, holding a pair of scales, and I believe that to be an economic collapse. With all my heart.
Which leads to famine potentially.
Exactly. When it even says a quart of wheat for a day's wages, 3 quarts for a day's wages, and do not damage oil and wine. We can go into that different time. So absolutely, there's so many perspectives on this. Fourth is the green horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades followed close behind him. They were given power over the fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, plague, and by wild beast of the earth. Now, I personally believe this is kind of a summation, if you will, of all the horses up to this point. It's showing this is what's taking place now. It's like the sum of all of them together. Now, something I think a lot of people miss, though, is how this is paralleled exactly in Ezekiel chapter 14. Allow me to read it for you. Ezekiel 14, I'm starting in verse 21. It says, "This is what sovereign Yahweh says. How much worse will it be when I send against Jerusalem my 4 dreadful judgments?" And it says, sword, famine, wild beasts, and plague, to kill its men and their animals. It's the exact same thing we just read out of Revelation on that 4th horseman. All 4 of these, the sword, famine, wild beast, and plague. It's the exact same. So I don't know how people can miss that, but man, when Ezekiel shows it, and now Ezekiel shows it happening in Jerusalem first, but make no mistake, I'm just going to reference it here, but it's in Ezekiel 4, verses 1 through 6. It's where you see things starting in Jerusalem. And in fact, I think I've got it. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Yeah, this is Ezekiel 4, verse 3. This is when the siege, put a siege around Jerusalem, all this stuff taking place. And then it says, then take an iron pan, place it as an iron wall between you and the city, and turn your face toward it. It will be under siege, and you shall besiege it. And then it says this will be a sign to the house of Israel. Why? Because it's coming your way next. That's what it means. So it's not just in Israel. No, it goes all over. Matter of fact, I've got a verse
whole house
somewhere. Yeah. Exactly.
And once there's been some banter in the chat. Once you understand that upon placing your faith in Yeshua, you cease being a pagan. You cease being of the nations. Now, again, I'm still American. I'm still from Alabama. If you can't tell, I got a Southern accent. You don't cease being American, but you are immediately a citizen of Israel.
You're grafted.
You were excluded. You had no hope. You had no promises. You know, Ephesians 2. But now we are fellow citizens, and I'll just boldly state it. I'm a citizen. You know, I don't always act like an obedient citizen.
Israel. Huh? Right, of the heavenly Israel, if you will.
Well, but I'm alive right now, and I'm an ambassador of Yeshua, and he's the king of Israel.
Right. Well, I bring that up because when we say Israel, so many times we go to the modern state of Israel, and that's not what we're talking. We're talking to the Israel of Yahweh. That's all I'm bringing out.
And for your audience, I'm always very clear. If I'm referring to the modern nation state of Israel, I will say the modern nation state of Israel.
Right. Same
For
here.
that reason, because it gets confusing.
Yes.
I know I'm not a citizen. They won't let me in. They're discriminating against me because I'm not Jewish. And Yah's using their discrimination policy to effectuate and keep all of us out of the land until he deems it appropriate.
Right. Right. No joke.
He
Now,
is.
well, and something else too. Back to the citizenship. Paul was a Roman a citizen. He never gave up his citizenship just because he was a citizen of Yahweh of Israel. He kept it. So it doesn't mean you're not a citizen of the whatever country you're in. You know. Anyway, but to your point, how it comes on the whole house of Israel. This is what Yeshua said, Luke 21:34. Be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with dissipation, drunkenness, and anxieties of life, and that day will close on you unexpectedly like a trap. And then it says, verse 35, for it will come upon all those who live on the face of the whole earth. So it's going to go, and that goes back to Ezekiel. It's going to go to the northern and southern kingdom, everybody everywhere. And that's to your point earlier. It's like we're all everywhere. We're scattered all around, so that it's going to happen everywhere just the same. Are you with me so far?
Yep.
Okay. Now, back to that point of Ezekiel 14, where it talks about those 4 plagues, and it says it comes to kill the men and their animals. Well, that's the 4th seal, and it leads right into the 5th seal. What? The martyred remnant under the altar, where you see all these people who have been killed for their faith. Okay. And this, I look at this, I believe, and I could be wrong, but this is going to be a time of extreme persecution. I mean, a time where if you did not escape, if you did not have the wisdom to get out, and I'll come back to that because I've had a lot of people saying, I have nowhere to go. We'll cover that in a little bit. This is going to be a time, I mean, utter devastation, and it will come upon them like that. Yeshua said, hey, man, just as it was in the days of Noah, the flood came at a moment's notice, and no one was ready. It will be the same principle. When this day happens, I promise you, it's going to catch a lot of people off guard.
Now, do you believe that would be the day that of the sealing? I may be fast forwarding you. I do that a lot when we have these talks. I don't know exactly where you're going, but where the day when the 12,000 from each tribe are sealed. Maybe this harpazo event of the man-child. Do you believe that could be when it's, the judgment really starts to get poured out?
You're jumping the gun. 1 second. But you're right on track, because that's what I'm right there. But the point is, though, I think, and let's backtrack. So we're saying, if we're right, or I'm right on this current thought that I have, that all this starts on the 40th day of the counting to Shavuot, the day Yeshua ascended, and now all of a sudden it's all going to start again on this 40th day. Okay, that means there's 10 days left to Shavuot. Okay, that means this could easily be the 10 days on the Church of Smyrna when they're told, you will have to go through 10 days of persecution. Matter of fact, it says that they're told that, they're told to be faithful even to the point of death, and they will be given a crown of life. I mean, this is going to be 10 days, if I can say it, from hell. Okay, now I want to make it clear, though, that this is man's persecution. This is not God's wrath. This is not God's judgment, anything like that. It's, I guess you could say it could be God's judgment, but it's not God's wrath. That's for sure. It's man's wrath.
He would be allowing instruments of judgment, much like Nebuchadnezzar, much like
yes.
When his people were disobedient, he allowed other nations to judge them, whether it be Philistines or Ammonites or Moabites.
Yep. Even the Babylonians at that time too, and Desert Jeremiah. Correct. Exactly. So it would be considered judgment through Yahweh, but not his wrath. There's a difference, a big difference. Now, that being said, I had a thought, I completely lost it. Forgive me. It was
That's okay.
regarding I know. So because the martyr remnant, they're asked, how long, O Lord, Steve paraphrasing here, how long, O Lord, until you avenge our blood? Okay. And then they're all given white robes and told to wait a little longer until the fellow number of their brothers was completed. Well, when does that happen? Well, that leads us, that's the fifth seal. Now that leads us to the sixth seal, and that would be the resurrection. And I believe with all my heart, as we've discussed multiple times, that the resurrection takes place either on the 49th day or the 50th day, because the 49th day is the last day of the counting. You count 7 Sabbaths, okay? Then the next day is the Shavuot. So I can see either one, but I believe with all my heart that will be the day the resurrection takes place. And, Yeshua said, I would raise him up on the last day. He said it like 4 or 5 different times in John chapter 6. He would raise his faithful followers up on the last day. And if you go to Revelation 2, I think it's 18, 19, somewhere around there, you see the resurrection taking place the same day Babylon is destroyed. Okay. And I've covered that in several teachings too. But this is all leading up to that day when we're resurrected. Now, to your point, like, is this the day we're sealed, or the 12,000 from each tribe? I think that happens on that day. Okay. Exactly how I'm sure I could be wrong here and there with regarding the logistics of it. Maybe, I don't know, but to me, it just makes the most sense, because if you go to Revelation chapter 7, it says, I don't have it in front of me, forgive me. It's like verse 4 or 5. It says to, hold off on everything until we put the seal on everybody. Okay. Then it all happens. So it seems as if they're sealed first, like appointed. And then all of a sudden, just as they're sealed, all that judgment of the seals take place. Okay. Or I should say the sixth seal takes place, because that's going to be the beginning of your trumpet judgments at that time. But from here is where, if you are not resurrected on the day of Shavuot, i.e., or the day before, then this is when the days of the Antichrist begin. And if you go to, again, Revelation 17, 18, 19, it says that the Antichrist, along with these 10 rulers, okay, are given authority to burn and destroy Babylon. So Babylon's in existence even when the Antichrist is around. But then because Babylon's in existence, he is not ruling. So the Antichrist is the one with the 10 kings, destroys Babylon so he can rise to power. And I covered that in several different teachings. I don't have it in front of me which one I cover it in. But those would then be the days of the Antichrist at that moment. And I'm sure there's lots of questions, so we'll address the questions here in a little bit. Antichrist reigns for that remaining time. And then you have the Battle of Armageddon. Now, my current thought is the Battle of Armageddon is going to happen somewhere around Sukkot. More than likely, I see the last day of Sukkot. It may start before that, maybe even Day of Atonement, but it concludes on the last day of Sukkot. You got a thought?
Well, you have to have at least 5 months for the I think it's for the fifth trumpet and the 5 months 150-day period. You have to have that. And so we're at the third month with Sukkot being the 7th month. So
where you got the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th.
So, yeah, that's 5 months. But
well, could you? That goes
in
line with
it fits.
Yep. Well, it goes in line with what you said too, because it's I think it's Revelation chapter 9, where it discusses the abyss being opened and the locusts, or the creatures that look like locusts and stuff, they're loose for 5 months. Okay. And so, yeah, definitely. That's definitely going to be a part during the days of the tribulation.
And I was guilty of this for years, Steve. I would say that they were that these I call them these demon bugs, or whatever you want to call them, or demon hornets. They're tools of Yah's judgment. They're going to be used to judge.
Yep.
And I used to be mistaken, and I would say they would torment all who took the mark. Text doesn't say that.
Yeah.
Text says they torment all who don't have the seal of Yah on their forehead.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
You could be Bear Grylls off in the wilderness and not have taken the mark, and then and that demon bug. If we read the text, you're
Yep.
not going to be having an enjoyable 5 months.
Man, I'm telling you, you just nailed it. It's so just fleeing out to wilderness isn't going to save you. It's being sealed by him. That's what's going to protect you. And that's the goal, you know. So at that time, then, like I said, we'll have the Battle of Armageddon. And it's at this time, after that battle, that's when you have the second Exodus, in my current understanding. And I have a teaching simply on that, all about the second Exodus, because I believe in the second Exodus. I really do. It's just, I believe that it's going to be those who are alive and remain who survived. In fact, all the prophets talk about it, the survivors. And that's even why Yeshua cuts things short, because if he didn't, no one would survive. So let's just know there will be survivors, and they will begin that second Exodus back to the land at that time.
And there have to be goyim / pagans, those of the nations that do survive, who are not Israel, because in the millennium, in the next age, if they won't reign, these nations must come to celebrate, honor, keep the Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles.
Yeah.
So not, I think that's more of a sheep and goats type judgment type thing, perhaps, as to who gets to enter the kingdom versus who that we could. That's just it. Me and you could sit here and do this probably for 2 days and barely
right.
scratch the surface.
You know it. Well, but to your point, not only though, I don't think it's just going to be of the nations. I think there'll be believers who survived, and those who knew that they knew. Afterwards, their eyes were opened, and they go, "Oh my gosh, we didn't." So there's going to be a conglomerate of a whole bunch. So
and when we look at these judgments, I still believe the primary purpose of the seals and the trumpets is to get people to repent.
Yes,
in other
absolutely.
words, to get them to repent, so that the ultimate final judgment does not have to happen, and
absolutely.
then they're not killed and sitting around for the next 1,000 years awaiting the second resurrection when the books are open.
Right. Well, and I think even specifically too regarding the seals, and I'm with you. Everything you said, 100% agreement. When I look at the seals, because the seals is that, if I'm right, that 10-day time frame from the 40th day to Shavuot. Actually, if you go 10 days from the 40th, you go to the 49th, because you got to count the 40th as one there, so that's 10.
Right.
I think there will be a lot of believers who, how do I say this? Not sounding judgmental. I don't want to be judgmental.
Say it with grace.
With grace. Well, I feel as if, and here I am saying the word feel, that is going to be a time, and as I mean it with all of my heart, it will be of utmost terrible time. Okay. But in it, Yahweh is saving his people. Okay. Because, when things don't go your way, what do? You fall on your knees and you repent. Even if you don't know what to repent of, you repent. And I think there's going to come a time for those who are not walking in obedience to him. That will be their time. And he's saving them. And you know what? I've heard a lot of people come down hard on people who don't follow Torah. And I'm sorry, but Yeshua said that there'll be the least and the greatest in the kingdom. Okay. Those who obey the commands and teach the commands are the greatest. Those who don't teach the commands and follow the commands are the least. Well, wait a second. That means you have people in the kingdom who aren't following the commands. Okay. So, I'm sorry, folks, but there's a lot of people who right now are not following the commands out of rebellion. They're not following the commands because they don't know. They don't understand. Their eyes have not been opened.
Indoctrinated.
Yes. So it's not out of rebellion. It's not like, forget this stuff. Now, if they come to the realization, and we don't know their heart, so please remember that. There might be some out there who are like that, and the Father has opened their eyes and they still turn away. That's between them and the Father. But I'm telling you, forgive me 1 second. There are so many, and I mean so many good people who don't know. And just today, man, I was praying and I'm just thinking about all the friends that I have who are in the church. And these are great people, who love the Lord. Yes, not the way how Yahweh describes love. I get it, okay? But on their current understanding of the scriptures, man, he's everything to them. And so just because they don't see eye to eye with us, man, that should give us a passion to pray for them and to say, Father, open their eyes. Go ahead.
I can give you an example right now. I mean, obviously, my mother thinks that I'm rather peculiar right now, but my mother's no doubt has placed her faith and trust and hope in Yeshua, who says Jesus. My mother has cancer right now. Who is getting my mom? Because I'm up in Birmingham, my sister has to work. Who's being the hands and feet of Messiah, getting my mom to and from the doctor? Those people in that local church that she had helped all her years, that she had served into them, and she had been the hands and feet of Messiah. Those are the people saying, Miss Pat, no, quit feeling guilty. You have served this community for 60 years, and we want to serve you.
Amen. That's cool.
And I told her, I said, Mom, you're stealing them of their blessing. They are blessed to help you. And so, but again, if anybody tells me a walking the walk, talking the talk, bearing the fruit of the Spirit Christian is going to, again, I can't get into their heart, but I can I can be a fruit inspector.
You know what I mean? Right. Yep.
And they confess with their mouth and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, are they wrong on the Sabbath? Are they wrong about Christmas and Easter? Are they wrong about that ham sandwich? 100% no doubt, by golly. And I would tell them, I don't want your status in the kingdom to be affected by bacon. Or I would tell my Messianic Jewish brothers right now, stop it. Quit adding to and taking away. And I don't want to hear your nonsense. We have to have traditions. Well, okay, let's say you as a local fellowship have some traditions, as long as you don't command them and make sure everybody in the fellowship do your traditions that you like to do in corporate worship in their homes.
Yep.
But don't tell me you just, no, you love Judaism.
Yeah.
You love the traditions. You love the title. You love, I'm sorry, it's all Babylon. And he wants you to get the heck out. And I do believe that's part of this. And so that's my heart right now. I do believe that's part of it.
Yeah,
Get
I agree.
out of bed with the harlot. I don't care if she wears a green and red dress or blue and white dress. Stop it.
That's so funny.
It's true though, and I'm being not graphic compared to Ezekiel 23.
Right. No, I'm right there with you.
I'm keeping it G. So go ahead.
I am trying to find my notes. Okay. After the second Exodus is when we have the new beginning, the new beginnings of we entering the millennium. Now, some could argue, well, the millennium starts at the end of the Armageddon, or it started already. However you want to say it, I'm open. But the bottom line is, all war is now done, according to Hosea chapter 2. After Armageddon, there's no more war, period. Ever on the face of the earth, there will not be another war, And so, to me, that's like this. Here we go. We're entering into the millennium under Yeshua's reign, thus the beginning, new beginning. And I can't wait for that time. I don't know about you.
So now, I take it you don't advocate for this little season theory nonsense going around right now?
Oh, I have a whole teaching on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you do. That's what I'm saying. Satan's little season. I'm like going, but I saw bazookas the other day and I saw AR-15s and I keep seeing bombs dropped. What?
I know.
What Bible are you reading?
Anyone who says we're in the Satan's little season, you are completely omitting Hosea 2. There's so many prophets. They completely ignore the prophets and try to piece things together how they want, but that's a different topic. You can watch our teaching on that. Same thing with 70, 80
preterists. Yeah, they completely ignore everything, Genesis to Malachi, and they cherry pick a few verses. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so during this time, one of my teaching thing was Satan's Greatest Masquerade, part 1 or part 2, I bring out how there's a parallel with Yeshua and David and Saul and the Antichrist. You see, Saul was the king, but David was the anointed king. Okay, so here's Saul reigning in the city when David, the anointed king, is now out in the wilderness, and he's got all of his people gathered around him. Okay, so what's the parallel? What's Yeshua? You've got the Antichrist reigning in the city, and you have Yeshua, the anointed king, out in the wilderness with his people. And the time will come when Yeshua will come over and take over Jerusalem.
Yeah,
And
when the timing is right.
Oh man, yeah, that'll have to be when after the end of Armageddon.
Well,
And again, I cover that in detail
see,
in that teaching.
again, I can see, how Yeshua could gather. I'm gonna say harpazo. Again, this man child. I can see how that could happen. Where me and you have one, I guess you would say. I believe just like Paul was harpazo to the third heaven and sent back down on a mission from Yah to spread the gospel. I believe that this man child, those overcomers, those who are going to perhaps be chosen as a bride, are raptured and sent back down. In other words, we're not just going to be floating up in heaven in like the pre-trib brothers teach, we're having a 7-year wedding banquet. No, we got work to do. That's my understanding.
I hear you.
Whether or not we're glorified and become immortal, I don't believe so. I believe we're sent back down sort of like little Elijahs and Moseses, or like Paul and Peter back in the day. There's going to be some supernatural stuff going on, but death is still a possibility for us. And I believe most that are selected for that get martyred over that period of time after they're sealed.
I got you. See,
I may be wrong.
That's where, that's where we differ pretty much. That's a big difference for us, because for me, when we're resurrected, according to Ezekiel 36:37, when we're taken up, you're changed in an instant. To me, and that's when the new covenant starts for those people. And
again, so, I get it. I'm just basing it on Paul. He was harpazo to the third heaven, and he didn't get transfigured.
So. Right. But he wasn't resurrected, though. There's a difference.
No, but we're living. We're not dead. In other words, we're not changed.
I'm with you, but at the same time, at the resurrection, you are changed. And so the question is what you're going to be saying, the harpazo, is at the time of the resurrection, or are you resurrected later? That's what you seem to. See, I think
we differ on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, on that topic of being resurrected, because a lot of people will use, and I forget the exact verse, but it's in Revelation, where it says, "Come out of her, my people." And a lot of people will use this to say, we got to get out of America. We got to get out of here, get out of the cities. Okay, I understand that. But we are called to be a light in the city, light to the world, until he calls us home. You can't leave prematurely. And I feel that's too many people have left prematurely. They left their duties, all these people around them. I was like, be the light. We're called to be that light until the last moment. And for me, when it says come out of her, my people, I really believe that's the resurrection. Or let me even rephrase, it's that moment of when we have that warning to come out of Babylon, And
I look at it more like a mystery Babylon, the harlot, and what we witness in Christianities and Judaisms. In other words, the two sisters, Judah and Israel, Judah of Ephraim, these two sisters from Ezekiel 23 have always been harlots. And you see that in Revelation, the harlot receives double. And then if we go back to Ezekiel 23, we see Judah drinking the cup of her sister, receiving a double portion, not blessing. They're receiving a double portion judgment. And so, that's not anti-Semitic. That's just what the text says.
Yeah.
And so that's how I view harlotry. Is it's Judaism's, it's Roman Christianity, it's the protesting daughters, and we all probably we're probably, all got a little bit of religion in us still. I mean,
yeah, there's always something we're fighting and getting out of us one day at a time.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean,
it's a journey. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And I'm not criticizing anybody if they're on step 0.02 of this journey, starting to see it. That's their journey.
That's right. And that's where we need one another for grace and mercy and love one another. Back to our point, though, as I was thinking, the come out of her, my people. I mentioned it. I think it's before the resurrection specifically, because just like with the 10 virgins, it says, "Here comes the bridegroom." And then what? Come out to meet him. There's an act for the people to do, and so now let me address the thing, because, well, before I do that, Jeremiah 51, verse 45, it says, come out of her, my people. And then it says, run for your lives, run for the fierce anger of from the fierce anger of Yahweh. Well, the word for run in the Hebrew is actually escape. And what did Yeshua say? Pray that you're able to escape all these things. So I think when it says come out of her, I think that's the warning time, that just like Noah had a 7-day warning, man, I'm hoping and praying we get a 7-day warning of some kind, And I think that will be our time. Now, as I was going to address earlier, a lot of people have said, man, Steve, I have nowhere to go. I don't have a thing out in the woods. I don't have this. I have no place to go. I don't even have a tent, or maybe they have a tent. I don't know. I think if that is you're in that case, you need to pray that when that time comes, that one of two things will happen, that you are so sensitive to the Holy Spirit that if he calls you to leave your home and just go to the woods with a tent, backpack, whatever, you need to listen to the Holy Spirit on that. Or I think it could be a same situation that we have with Korah. Because look at Korah and his rebellion. Moses called everybody out. Well, yeah, I think Yahweh actually did it, and Moses obeyed by telling people to do. And everybody stood at their tents, okay? And then those who are to be judged, wherever they were at, were judged. And if you weren't around those who are judged, you're safe. Thus, stay in your tent, okay? And I think if you are in that situation where you don't have a place to go, and if you don't feel the Spirit leading you away to go somewhere, I think you'd be using wisdom to lock yourself in your home. I mean, I'm talking like we know it's all just started. Okay. Now, as time gets closer and things start to happen, we're all going to get more clarity on things, and we're going to get direction on things. I can promise you it's going to happen. As we get closer, the Spirit's going to open our eyes on everything. But my current suggestion would be, if you don't have a place to go, you make sure you have at least 10 days of food in your home.
Minimum 10, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But when I say lock yourself in, you separate, you come out of Babylon, you keep yourself in, just like with Korah's, all the people went to their tents, and only those who are to be judged were judged. Okay. And so and that goes in line with Passover too. Okay. Because what happened, they locked themselves in at home at that night. They didn't come out to that morning. And so I think there's a principle there that we stay in Yeshua, and we separate ourselves at that moment as best as we can. And that's something that we're all going to have to do, and learn and grow and follow what the Spirit leads and puts on our heart. But one thing I do believe, that this time of the seals is going to be a time of refinement. And I mean harsh refinement. There's a verse I want to read.
Purification.
Yes. If you don't mind, may I read?
How is silver refined?
Exactly. And it's so funny you say that. Check this out. Okay. That is so funny you say that. I am going to read Isaiah 48, verse 10. And if you bear with me, I'm going to read about looks like 12 verses. Okay. So if you can bear with me here. And to what you just said, listen to the first verse. Isaiah 48, starting verse 10. See, I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. Verse 11. For my own sake, get it? For my own sake, he says, for my own sake, I do this. How can I let myself be defamed? I will not yield my glory to another. Listen to me, O Jacob, Israel, whom I have called. Now, again, here's Jacob, Israel. All of Israel, not this kingdom, not just, the southern kingdom of the north. It's all.
It's Jews.
Yep. Okay.
Not just the Ephraimites and the Gadites, not just the Reubenites.
Yep. Exactly. Okay. So again, verse 12. Listen to me, O Jacob, Israel, whom I have called. I am he. I am the first and the last. My own hand laid the foundations of the earth, and my right hand spread out the heavens. When I summon them, they all stand up together. Come together, all of you, and listen. Which of the idols has foretold these things? Yahweh's chosen ally will carry out his purpose against Babylon. His arm will be against the Babylonians. I, even I, have spoken. Yes, I have called him. I will bring him, and he will succeed in his mission. Now, verse 16, listen to this. Come near to me and listen to this. From the first announcement, I have not spoken in secret. There it is. At the time it happens, I am there. And now sovereign Yahweh has sent me with his spirit. This is what Yahweh says, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. I am Yahweh your God, who teaches you what is best for you, who directs you in the way you should go. Listen to verse 18. If only you had paid attention to my commands. I'm going to read that again. I know. Verse 18. If only you had paid attention to my commands, your peace would have been like a river, your righteousness like the waves of the sea. Your descendants would have been like the sand, your children like the numberless grains. Their name would never be cut off nor destroyed from before me. Now, verse 20. Leave Babylon, flee from the Babylonians. Announce this with shouts of joy. I get that so crazy cool. Look, I want to read verse 20 again. Leave Babylon, flee from the Babylonians. Announce this with shouts of joy and proclaim it. Send it out to the ends of the earth. Say, Yahweh has redeemed his servant Jacob. They did not thirst when he led them through the deserts. He made water flow for them from the rock. He split the rock and water gushed out. There is no peace, says Yahweh, for the wicked. So, first, he's doing it for his name's sake. That means he's going to correct all those who have taken his name in vain. Okay. And then here he is telling us, because you haven't followed my commands, this is coming your way. That's huge. And then it says there will be no peace for the wicked. So if you remain stiff-necked, meaning wicked, and let it be known, I don't know the Hebrew word for wicked here, but I do know that when you go to the Mount Sinai and they're putting up the golden calf, and it says all of them, tomorrow's a feast unto Yahweh. Okay. Well, what did Yahweh say about these people? He said they are raw, wicked. That's what he said about these people. Now, they're in their mind, they're serving Yahweh, yes, but they're doing it wrong. They're doing it in the ways they want to do it, not the ways he said to do it. So if you remain in your stiff neck in your ways, he considers you wicked.
Well, here's what I hear a lot when it comes to certain vain traditions of men, certain symbols, titles, customs. When I have these conversations, whether it be with a Christian or a Messianic Jew, I'm not going to include Judaism because they deny Yeshua. But right. Your various Christian denominations and Messianic Judaisms, I hear a lot of, I love the waving of the light. I hear I. In other in what they think, feel, or want. Versus, to your point, what you just read, this is part of the commandments, everybody.
Right.
Now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the judgments which I teach you to observe, that you may live, and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers is giving you. You shall not add to the word which I command you. Pretty simple. Nor take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. So these individuals, again, that are making it a condition precedent to do extra biblical additions to Scripture. My heart is concerned. This is not somebody posting a comment earlier. So, you'll defend Christian traditions, but not Jewish. I'm like, this person must be new because I've been beating up on Christian stuff for about 5 or 6 years.
Right.
Realizing that I'm a hypocrite in the past year and really getting convicted on it. I didn't do all the Jewish stuff, but right. I might as well be an equal opportunity harlot basher. Right. So, because it is, and it hurts, and people's identity get tied in with their religion, and that's why it's so hard for mamas and daddies and daughters and sisters and friends when a person goes, no, I'm not going to do Christmas anymore. I can't. I love you. No, I cannot do Easter anymore. No, I'm not doing Hanukkah.
Right.
It's a
Right.
historical event, but I am not celebrating a lie by lighting 9 candles. It is a lie.
Right.
So, and it doesn't matter what I feel or what I think
And
or
it's
what I
okay to
want.
have, and it's okay to have feelings and stuff like that,
I
like I
get it.
mentioned earlier, but they can't dictate what we do. It's got to be his word that dictates what we do and what we follow in obedience to him.
And I'm not on the throne judging somebody because they like to do some Christian traditions or some Jewish traditions, which are totally out of the Bible. Okay.
Right.
But
Right.
it can lead to confusion. It's like you're hearing somebody defend homosexuality with a Christian going, you're sitting there eating an abomination. You're eating bacon.
Right. Right.
They
Right.
got them. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Your God changes. My God's a God of love now. And he just, love, love, love. Gospel of the Beatles. All we need is love.
But he's always been a God of love. I mean,
I
from
know
day
that.
one. I
You
mean,
know that.
but they don't see that, they'll say, well, now we're in the age of grace. Well, wait a second, go back to the garden. There was grace right there when Adam sinned. What was it? Grace. Okay. So, I mean, yeah. But anyway, let's backtrack.
Go ahead.
Well,
I'll start preaching, and I'm not.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you. Well, when it comes to leaving Babylon, because we read back there in Isaiah, was it 48? I think it was. Yeah. Verse 20 says, leave Babylon, flee from the Babylonians. Well, Babylon is everywhere. It really is. The system is everywhere. So there's no place to run per se. And that's why I'm saying you got to separate yourself. And that's why I really mean, if you don't have a place to go to and the seals, and if I'm right, someday that time comes and we know, oh, goodness gracious, this is it. What's it going to be? Well, I'm always watching for the Ark of the Covenant or something to do with the temple or them doing sacrifices on the Temple Mount. Those are the 3 top things for me. Okay, like things are about to get serious. At that time, that's when I say stock up your food and get ready to lock yourself in, because it's about that time. Like with the days of Korah. Put yourself in your tent and separate yourself. Well, I don't know.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say, I don't know, but these are the things that because Babylon's everywhere. I just feel like for those who don't have a place to go to, there's always a thing to do. Obviously, you pray and ask him to lead you. But at the very least, you separate yourself in your home, and that's it. But you got to make it a point that, you're definitely separating yourself. Changing gears a little bit. I'm going to hit current events a little bit. I don't know about you, but lots of talk about the new Pope, how all this stuff was going on. And man, every news channel, everywhere you went, everyone's talking about they're looking for a new Pope and they're voting for this and all this. I don't follow it and I don't even, whatever. But what I did find interesting is that while all this was taking place about the Pope, Israel designated their first high priest. Did you know that? Their first high priest since the last 2,000 years. They now have.
I knew that there was some guy that supposedly never been around a dead body before, and they had been. He was a candidate, but so it's official now.
Yeah, evidently, because I've seen several people have been sending me several different things here and there, and I looked it up, but man, you can't find it. They keep it on the low key. They make it official, but yet it's you can't even find it hardly anywhere. You got to look and they go, oh my gosh, here it is. They're making, and I just find it interesting that all these pieces are getting set in place. Go ahead.
Was it the same day the Pope was conclaved elected?
No, it was before that. From my understanding, it was about, I'm going to say at least 4 or 5 days before that. But that's when they had all this talk and, everyone's talking about the new Pope instead of about a new Pope coming, being voted on and stuff. It was covering all then. But here's the thing. The people forget that it was the priests who led the people astray before the Babylonian captivity. I don't understand why people don't see this. You can go through Jeremiah, you can go through the Kings and through Chronicles, and you can see how it was the priest who was leading the people astray over and over again. So when I hear people saying that, I'm going to change topic ever so slightly for a moment.
Okay.
That they want to follow this calendar because that's the one that the priests followed. Folks, I'm sorry, but you don't understand. Those priests were leading the people astray. Are you sure you want to follow that calendar that they were promoting? I don't
And it
get it.
got and it got worse after Hanukkah and the Maccabees. They said, "Well, I tell you what, we were such good battle leaders. We'll make ourselves high priests. Never mind that we're not Zadokian.
Right,
You
right.
know, who
But
cares
even
what
then,
Scripture says? We're going to make ourselves priests."
if you stick to the Zadok time frame of through, especially after the days of Hezekiah, okay, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these people, the priests. Okay, here's the thing: when someone says they want to follow that calendar because that's what the priests did, to me, I don't think they really don't know what they're saying, because that priesthood was an abomination to Yahweh. Okay, in fact, you can look at the days of Josiah. This is like Second Kings. I think it's chapter 22, 23, somewhere around there. When he became king at 8 years old. And then I think it's 18 years later, they're doing work on the temple and stuff. And then one of his servants came in and says, "Hey, look, we found the book of the law." Well, wait a second. You're surprised? The book of the law in the temple, and you're surprised? What was going on? Well, who was over the temple? The priests. If you go in to look what Josiah cleaned out of the temple, it is insane. I got a verse. I think it is. Yeah, it is 2 Kings 23. Well, I think it starts in 22, but this is 23. Check out. This is just one small clip of what he cleaned out. This is 2 Kings 23:11. It says, "He removed from the entrance to the temple of Yahweh the horses that the kings of Judah had dedicated to the sun." Let's stop. So now you got horses dedicated to the kings, to the sun. Now, the kings of Judah did it, but the priests were the ones who were over it, and they allowed it to come in. Now let's go a little farther. They were in the court near the room of an official named Nathan Melech. Josiah then burned the chariots dedicated to the sun. So now we have horses dedicated to the sun and chariots dedicated to the sun. Well, why would there be horses and chariots dedicated to the sun? I'll tell you why. Because in the Greek similarity of this god, it was Helios, the sun god. I forgot the Babylonian name for it, but it's Helios. Helios was the sun god, and he got in his chariot with his horses and chariot that flew in the sky, and he pulled the sun behind him in the chariot. That's what was dedicated to the sun in the temple of Yahweh. Now, why would they do that? Because they're following a calendar of the sun only. That's why you have the sun and the horses and the chariot dedicated to the sun. They completely obliterated everything else and following the sun only. It was sun worship. And I don't understand how anyone cannot see that. It bothers me when I hear people saying, "Oh, you got to follow the priest." No, you follow Yahweh. You don't follow the priests.
Here's a good one. I believe I understand, Peter Brad, what you're saying. If Yeshua followed it, good enough for me. I would quickly. Yeshua did not follow the Hillel calendar that the current Judaism follows, because it wasn't even invented at the time. In other
Exactly.
words, it was not invented until I think a couple of hundred years later, when Hillel based it so that they could do like a calculated calendar. And here's what it is. Judaism has admitted they know it's not correct. I guess they're just waiting around perhaps until a new Sanhedrin or this new high priest that the nation state of Israel has elected decides to change the calendar. That would be very interesting, Steve, if all of a sudden, I mean, I don't think it'll be coincidence if all of a sudden the Sanhedrin, the Judaisms get together with their now high priest and decide, okay, we're going to do the calendar this way. That would be very, very interesting if and when that happens.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I never consider that perspective. It would be interesting if they do change, but that's a big thing for them to change. That's for sure. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they like traditions, but
oh man, yeah. Well, let me read a few verses regarding what Jeremiah says regarding the priesthood. Jeremiah 8:10. And I say all this because of this priesthood. It's the priesthood is what leads the people astray, and it will be the priesthood in the end times that leads the people astray again. So it's history being cyclical. He makes known the end from the beginning, ancient times, what's still to come. Right. So here's Jeremiah 8:10. "Therefore, I will give their wives to other men, and their fields to new owners. from the least to the greatest, all are greedy for gain. Prophets and priests alike, all practice deceit. And that was 8:10. This is 23:11. Both prophet and priests are godless. Even in my temple, I find their wickedness in my temple. And in Josiah's day, he cleaned it all out. In fact, it says before that time and then after, no king had come and turned 100% to Yahweh like him. But the second he died, they immediately went back to their old ways. It says they followed the ways of their fathers. They went back to the sun worship. Exactly. So I mean,
like
it's
a big old roller coaster.
Yes.
Nothing new under the sun, Steve. Just read Judges.
Right.
Like,
right. Now, okay. Here's the thing, too. Now, listen to what Jeremiah 26:7 says, because this is like the kicker for me. The priests, the prophets, and all the people heard Jeremiah speak these words in the house of Yahweh. But as soon as Jeremiah finished telling all the people everything Yahweh had commanded him to say, the priests, the prophets, and all the people seized him and said, "You must die." And these are the people that want to follow the calendar that they created and did. I'm sorry. These are the people you don't want to follow. They wanted to kill the prophet.
And we had Rico on a few weeks ago, and I didn't feel well, so I couldn't finish the show. But yeah, it was good that I wasn't feeling well, because me and him would have been butting heads left and right. No, I do not have to follow the rabbis. No. I don't really care. What are your sources? I have one source, Scripture. I don't care about Talmud on the Christian side of the riverbank or the Judaism side of the riverbank.
Yeah.
I believe Yeshua is saying, "I'm the living water," because they had invented this elaborate water libation ceremony. He's going, "You're over there pouring your water all around. Show me in Scripture where that's commanded. I'm the living water. You're over there playing with your water." Seriously, they were having their festival of lights. I'm the light of the world. My sheep hear my voice. You're not sheep. You don't hear my voice. You're over there playing with your lights.
Yep.
You've got your.
I don't have the verse in front of me, but there's a verse where it says the priests and the prophets do what they want. It's like they're not even listening to me. They're not supposed to do it. And then you don't follow them because they're priests. You follow them because they uphold the word, the Torah. That's what you do. And if they're not following the Torah, you don't follow them.
Anybody in chat, or if y'all listen to this, or on Steve's channel, if you pretty easy to get in touch with, just email me at graftingtheology@gmail.com. If you got a verse showing me even one time where Yeshua condoned, endorsed, propped up any of the vain traditions of the Pharisees, the Sadducees, or any of the Judaisms, let me know. Because I've yet to see it. The only verse I've heard, Steve, so far is in Luke, where it says, on the Sabbath, as was his custom, he opened up the scrolls. But gathering on Shabbat was not a Jewish invention of the rabbis. That's in Torah. Reading Scripture, that seems like something you would do anyway on the Shabbat. What are you going to do? Read his digest?
But we can't forget Mark chapter 7. He says, "Man, you let go of the commands of God to observe your own traditions." And traditions, as you mentioned earlier, they're not bad, but they can't precede or take precedence over the Torah. Period. Well, let's bring it back.
My issue is when you adopt from a religion, whether it be Hail Mary full of grace or some of the other Roman stuff, and now you've adopted something from an anti-Messiah religion in which they're not rabbis command their adherents to say the Shabbat prayers, to light the candles, you must. In other words, it's required. And when you start mixing that in, and you're trying to tell Christian brothers and sisters that the Sabbath's not Jewish, the feasts aren't Jewish, what we eat's not Jewish, but all they can see and hear is Judaism, it causes confusion and stumbling. And
Yep. No,
I think that's part of this revelation. Get out of, I believe that's a main theme. It's about two women. It's about a harlot and a bride.
Yep.
It's about two cities. It's about the Jerusalem from above, and it's about Babylon, Jerusalem from below. As far as the it's like the spiritual religious cesspool of the world right now. Jerusalem
Mm-hmm.
is its capital.
Right,
So
right.
I know that offends people, but I'm sorry.
Well, let's start wrapping it up because I know
All right.
people want to ask some questions. Again, for me, I'm really watching the 10 days before Shavuot. I think there's something with that. Um, if something happens, we'll know. I pray for a 7-day warning. Now, for me, on the calendar we follow, that means if capital I, capital F, there's a 7-day warning, and it might just be a 1-day warning. I don't know. Okay, this is all assumption on my end. But in going with the precedence of like what's given with Noah, a 7-day warning, then 7 days before that would be, I think on our calendar is this coming Friday or Saturday, something like that. So I would see something of that nature that would say, hey, something's happening. What it could be, I don't know. I think it'll be something that only, just like with Noah, only he knew, but no one else did. So I think it would be something that believers will know and the world would be oblivious to it.
And possibly those that are actually obeying and watching.
Yeah.
In other words, that's a commandment, is to watch and don't sleep. And so there's a lot of people, a lot of good, solid Christian brothers and sisters that they're not paying attention to the signs of the times. In my opinion, they want to. There's almost like like an ostrich in the sand approach. Everybody can see what's going on with just the wickedness of transhumanism, transhumanism, transgender, all the tranny stuff, all the tranny stuff is just so off the charts. And then AI and quantum computing, and it just so happens it's been about 2 days since Yeshua returned to his place, and you have all these. You have millions of people all of a sudden starting to wake up and go, oh my goodness, Jesus meant what he said.
Right.
Maybe the Sabbath thing. Yeah, that's what maybe I should start, guarding this Sabbath thing. Maybe I should, maybe I should learn something about these feasts. They're his feasts. It's not so bad not to eat pork. He said not do it. I mean, that's the positive, Steve. That's why it is more so than the negative crap. That's why I believe that we're getting close to the end of this age.
Same here.
So that's my heart. I want every brother, sister that is in covenant to keep their journey going forward and to get all the way out of Babylon and help me with my journey too. Yep. And then I want every person not in covenant to place their faith in Yeshua, and they can start out like the Acts 15 former pagans, and we can tell them, hey guys, you can't watch porn at night anymore, okay? If you're an alcoholic, don't drink.
Right. Well,
we're all baby believers.
And we're all learning and growing and becoming more and more like, at least we should be, And so, but if we see that time coming, how much more so than ever before? And, I think, as I mentioned earlier, those 10 days, if we get any kind of a warning at all, and I think we will, because, he says he makes known what he's going to do to his prophets, and if something like that happens, then we need to understand that those last 10 days are going to be horrible. And something just came up. I saw it. I don't even remember where I saw it, but it was where the White House is now looking at suspending the habeas corpus because of all this stuff taking place with all the immigration stuff. Okay. And when I saw that, I kind of froze, to be very forward. I'm going, oh my gosh, I get what they're saying and why they're doing what they're saying. But people don't realize the ramifications that can have to anybody and everybody, especially to radicals. Because what happens if one day something happens, all of a sudden they call you a radical, and now all of a sudden habeas corpus is gone. You have no right. They can do what they say, what they want, when they want, how they want with the judge court system against you, because they just suspended habeas corpus, which was a protection on anybody and everybody for rightful due process. And now they did away with it, or they're looking at doing away with it. Yes. And if that goes through, oh my goodness gracious, that can affect People don't realize
Well,
what that can do. And I'm not saying I know everything about it, but and I get why they're saying it. I get it, but I'm just telling you, it's bad news. It can be bad news.
that I swim around in the conspiracy truther pool, because there's a lot of information, but create the problem. Let's
Yeah.
let's let's allow in millions.
Mm-hmm.
Reaction, the swing back to this side, solution, and if the solution is a crackdown, like with military type of, again, guys, this would not take. I mean, I know it's what, May the whatever 14th,
Mm-hmm.
and lots going on in the world right now. But right now in America, things are still fairly normal. But it would literally take nothing for the world to change, especially nowadays, for the entire world to change within a 1 hour period.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
wouldn't take much.
it really wouldn't, whether it be cyber attacks, EMP. I mean, it would not take much, because people go, oh man, way too much has to happen. I said, no, really, it just needs to be maybe some huge natural disasters,
Mm-hmm.
blame the weather, a war.
Even if you have an attack on the electrical grid, and I was a lineman for a while, so I can tell you right now, we were always having meetings on discussing and how the grid's all connected here and this, that, and the other, and you take out this many transformers, and you can take out the whole United States,
Yeah.
and people don't realize how really, and those things are not protected, So to your point, it's like it wouldn't take much, But here's the thing: I think as long as we keep ourselves focused on Him and pray that we have the eyes to see and ears to hear. And then whenever, if it's this year, next year, 3 years, 4 years from now, a decade from now, may we have our hearts opened and ready and go, okay, is this the warning sign? And if it is, what do I do next? Do I have a place to go to? Do I need to store food, lock myself in? I'm telling you, I know it sounds, for me to even be saying this, I'm thinking, wow, I wouldn't have said this 10 years ago, but we're at the phase that we're in this world. It's not that absurd to be talking like this. And I know that's weird to even say that, but it's true. Things are just getting weird. And I think we have our hearts open for anything at every time.
Well, if we're still talking in a decade, Steve, then we're on the very, very outer window of like the one or two scholars I could ever find that had Yeshua ascending as late as 36 AD.
Right.
I mean, that's like the outside window. And if that's the case, my theory is wrong. I've just, my hypothesis was incorrect. And so that's why I like to say this is just a theory. I've got some strong convictions on it, but it is not Yeshua's coming back, no doubt, by golly, by 2033.
Right.
I wouldn't discount it. Could be as early as 2028ish, and I think you might even, be ahead of me.
I'm watching next week, bro.
I know.
Yeah, I'm telling you, but that's for me every year. I watch. There are certain days in the calendar I watch every year, and that's just me. And
I think it's cool. And again, this was the first year I really, 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 for me, being honest, really was sitting there going, what's going on Passover? What's going on? This is the first year for a Shavuot that I've really thought that, maybe this could be a harpazo, a ceiling on this future Shavuot. So this is, again, once we made it past June 1st / June 8th.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. No, I'm with
somebody asked about the calendar, and anybody, as far as what calendar follow, I would encourage them, maybe, especially if you're just starting testing this, to watch the calendar discussion Steve was involved in. Because
that's on our homepage too, if you're interested.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That teaching you're talking about is on our homepage if people are interested in it.
Yeah. But that way, I mean, I thought it was well done. It gives 4 of the more popular calendars. Steve presents his position on the conjunction and using all 3 signs, sun, moon, and stars. About the only one that I didn't hear presented was really the one I follow, or my current understanding. And Steve and I are Steve's one day ahead of me. So like literally this year, when you were doing the 14th, I was on the 13th, and when you were on
Oh,
the
okay.
14th, I was on the. Yeah, I do it on the
Gotcha.
first possible sided moon, and so again, I may be wrong, but I think the way we treat brothers on this calendar issue, even if they're doing the solar, which makes no sense to me, even if they're following the rabbis and Hillel, which I don't understand, I'm not going to divide with them.
Right. Oh, no, no. I mean,
And
at
you
least
don't
we
either.
acknowledge, yeah, at least we acknowledge there's a calendar, and that's huge. You know what I'm saying? So I never want to offend anybody. I just bring out when I have a passion on this topic, and I understand why people, well, they have their views, and I differ, but I'm not going to divide. But they're going to know where I stand because I feel obligated to, like, look, I say I think you're wrong here, this and the other, and that's why. But I love them to death. I've got
Mhm.
awesome, and I can't underscore awesome enough, who we differ on the calendar on for different reasons and what have you. But man, dude, I wouldn't trade them for anything because they're my best friends.
Well, and you got Christian brothers and sisters. I doubt that no doubt that you love and respect that
Yep.
calendar schmalendar. We're on the Pope's calendar. So, it's January 1st, New Year, baby.
Right, right, right.
But again, that's going to be the majority of those that profess faith in Jesus right now.
Yep.
It's just that's the way we were raised. It's only by the grace of Yah that Steve and I are probably having this or whatever denomination you were, Steve.
Right. I was
So,
well, I was raised Pentecostal, then I went to Baptist where I was called the Baptist-costal, and then I was kind of a mixture there. Hey, do we have any questions that people need to have addressed before I know we went kind of long
I
here
put
today.
this one up. Steve, is there something specific you're looking for?
Yeah, for
So
me,
that was her question about
yeah,
the on the 40th day.
yeah. Well, for me, I would say a warning. I hope warning would be like us seeing either the Ark of the Covenant come out, Jerusalem being surrounded because them taking over the Temple Mount, something of that nature. And I think that's the warning to us, because on the 40th day, my concern is that will be the start of the seals. And if you are not in your place, either locked in your home or protected somewhere, it's going to be bad news. So I think you can't wait to the 40th day. But that's only if you get that warning. I don't think the Father's going to make just something happen, because he says this day will not catch you by surprise. So we as believers, we're going to see something coming. We're going to see it and know it coming. It won't catch us by surprise. So I believe with all my heart we're going to have some kind of a warning. What it will look like, I think, again, Ark of the Covenant coming out, Jerusalem being surrounded because of it, and or because of them starting sacrifices on the Temple Mount, something of that nature. Again, back to the priests, and again, because the priests led them astray back in the day, it's going to be the priest, modern priest, that's not of Yahweh, that will lead people astray today.
I believe so too. Yeah, they'll be leading obviously Judah astray, and maybe a lot of Messianic Jews and Hebrew rooters and things of that nature. That they believe that once the altar is set up and the sacrifices start, that that they have to go over there and
Yep.
I just want to know, what are you going to do on Yom Kippurim? I mean,
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. If you're considering that, I encourage you to watch. I have two teachings. One is beware of the coming sacrifices, and the second one would be something with the abomination of desolation. I forgot the name of that title of that teaching, but all about the abomination of desolation. Those two teachings, and what is the idol of jealousy? Those are teachings I think you need to consider, because I'm telling you, it's going to lead, like you just said, Scott, it's going to lead a lot of people astray.
You're in my position is definitely not one well loved or received within Messianic Judaism at all. I mean, it's where I've been called anti-Semitic, and like, no, I just really I'm not pro anti-Messiah religions
Mm-hmm.
that deny Yeshua, but that doesn't mean I hate Jews or that
No.
I hate Judaism. But here's a question: isn't that in Revelation? I know Yeshua mentions 10 days to persevere for 10 days. I'll let you take it, but yeah, it is. It's in.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned it earlier regarding the Church of Smyrna, and that's why I believe there's a parallel there. That's that I think is going to be how long the seals will be taking place until the
Okay.
sixth seal, I should say.
Okay. So maybe after all the first five, maybe there's a 10-day pause or a 10-day.
No, I
Okay.
think those first 5 seals are taking place from the 40th day to the 49th day, and on the
Okay.
49th day is the day of the resurrection, and then we go off to get for the new covenant at the marriage supper of the Lamb on Shavuot.
And let's see. I don't. We didn't have a lot of questions tonight, which is really weird, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Natalie asked, "Will you keep updating where needed and releasing world news reports going forward, Steve?" I bet he will, but you answer, Steve.
I will do my best. We have been so busy in our lifestyle right now. I've been trying to slow down. I can't, but I do try to do those news world updates. The problem is, man, the second I make one, it's outdated within minutes. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I can make when I get everything ready on that Thursday, and then I release it Thursday night. By Friday morning, people are watching it. That's old news. That was 5 hours ago. You know, it's like it's. But I've had multiple requests to do more of those, so I will do my best to start working on that more often. So I appreciate that as far as an encouragement there.
Yeah, I really like Natalie. I've had more personal conversations with her, and really good lady. But let's see, maybe we have one more. Well, that one. Question. The millennium reign is the 7th day or Shabbat. How does reigning and resting look? Sort of, we're talking about Revelation 20 and the 1,000-year millennium, what I now call the 7th day, the Shabbat rest that we are striving to enter from Hebrews 4. What are your thoughts, Steve? Similar, same?
Can you read the question one more time for me?
Is the millennium reign is the 7th day or Sabbath? How does reigning and resting look? I think she's wanting to know what's that going to look like for those that are resurrected and that are ruling and reigning, or right, along with Yeshua during this 7th day kingdom, this 1,000-year long kingdom.
I'm with you. Great question. One, it's a symbol. It's not saying it's a Sabbath day, because we have a Sabbath day, we have Sabbath years, okay, but we don't have Sabbath millenniums, we don't have Sabbath centuries, anything like that. So it's a symbolic of peace. That's what it's going to be. And Yeshua's reigning. There's no peace. It's nothing but peace. There's no war. So that's the whole thing. So I don't think it's like there's not going to be any work done. That's not the issue, because there's no command to say every 7,000 years you rest. It's not that. It's every 7 days. It's simply symbolic of it's the 7th day. Hopefully that helps.
I believe we'll have perfect righteous ruling. In other words, there will be nobody, I believe, in the kingdom, in that 1,000-year kingdom, that 7th day. Nobody's going to be falsely convicted. You're going to have a perfect judge.
Judge is okay. And as I've said before, I think the 144,000 will be the shepherds that is mentioned in I think it's Jeremiah 3, if I'm not mistaken, that Yahweh gives as the judges. Okay. And here's the thing. They're all wearing white. Okay. So what do our judges wear today? Black. And under Yeshua's rule, they wear white. So it'll be truly a time of true righteousness and justice ruling throughout all the world.
And that's really the last question, but it's interesting that when I contacted you a while ago, and you said you want to do Revelation. Well, Doug and I actually, just for anybody on your show, if you want to leave this up, and I want to have you, I'd love for you to come on as a guest when you can. We're going to start in Revelation 1, and we're going to go all the way through to the end, and have sort of like a little discussion, sort of like we've done tonight about Revelation. And maybe you can pick the areas you would love to come on and do this. We're going to call it like an iron sharpening iron type thing, where brothers can get on, knowing full well we're going to have some different understandings, but that way people can actually observe us disagree, and nobody takes their ball and goes home. They don't, nobody gets their little knickers in a wad or their panties all nicked up,
Right.
I'll be big boys and play in the sandbox together and have different understandings and opinions. And so, I would love to have you on, even if it's, every 2 or 3 months, because I mentioned to Doug, shoot, we might be doing that for a year. He says, Dude, if we stay in Revelation, and we go verse by verse, we're going to be there for like 3 years because we only do it every other week.
There's so much there, man, to dissect. Oh my stars almighty! Yeah, that's a lot.
So, man, I love getting you on here live. I feel like when we have these chats, obviously there's a little bit, but different than a normal conversation. But I look at this as we're just getting on here talking and I do believe it benefits people to just hear interaction and to chat
Amen.
and chit chat and differ. So,
yeah,
I really appreciate you having me on, Steve. I really appreciate you joining me.
There we go.
And allowing me to sort of be a guest on your weekly teachings that you do. So,
well, every time we do it, we get lots of compliments on having you, bro. So I appreciate the opportunity as well.
Who are these people and what's wrong with them? They're complimenting me.
That's funny.
All right. Well, everybody have a blessed evening. I guess Doug and I will see everybody tomorrow night over here on my channel or his channel. So y'all have a blessed evening. I'm going to end it now.
Shalom.